Welcome, welcome, welcome to this edition of Sagionic 1027. We are so glad you decided to join us today. And with us, I have another one of those guests that are like, yay! I'm so excited.
Aw.
I consider it such a joy.
Mm,
You know, before I introduce our guests, I want to share something with you, with our viewers. The whole
okay.
purpose behind our Sagionic 1027 is how do we get people to
Mm,
realize that they're more than the physical world? How do we get them to realize that they're not confined to the geographic environment of just their brain? Right? How do we get them to partner with the creative realm of the creator of the entire universe? So
mm,
even behind me, I've got this glorious piece of art that my biological brother did, my only brother, right? And that came through creative imagination and him playing with a tapestry. And so I'm reminded of X amount of years ago, there was a day I was getting ready to walk in my closet. And all of a sudden, it was like I saw all of these women. And I'm like, Lord, where are these women coming from? Right?
mm,
And he showed me that I was going to be used to teach people. In the Bible, there is a space that is spoken of that is called the Holy of Holies that
mhm,
pertains to in the old tabernacle. In the Old Testament, a tabernacle was what the Israelites put up when they were traveling through the wilderness. Later on, it became an official building, Solomon's Temple. Okay,
mhm, mhm,
but there was a space that they could go in that was deep, pure intimacy with the Lord God Almighty, right? So when he showed me this, I'm like, where are these women coming from? Right? And then
mhm,
anybody who knows me knows that through progression of time, all of a sudden there was Be the Vessel Now one day, and now there's Sagionic, right? And so
mhm.
Monica, this is Monica Albaugh. She is our guest. And today we get to learn about a woman. I don't know why I keep crying. Whoosh. We get to learn about a woman who has continuously chosen to
Mhm,
partner with the great I am.
mhm,
So, Monica, I thank you for being with us today.
mhm.
And today's program is all about you.
Thank you. Thank you for the honor of giving me this opportunity to share because I love sharing my story. I really do.
Yeah. So when we think of that, who is? Wait, I gotta have a pretend microphone here. I'll use this. That this is my biological father gave me this. We're gonna learn about Monica Alba today. So,
With the
Monica,
harmonica.
Monica, is what I would like you to do is I would like you to take viewers back to when was the first time in your life that you remember compassion welling up within you?
Oh man, the very first time from a very young age. My parents did foster care, and so we had foster kids, and I was just born to nurture. I was born to be a mama. And so I
Mm.
was very young. I know um, I always wanted to play with dolls. I always wanted to pretend like I was the mom or a teacher or a nurse. Those were the three things I grew up wanting to be. And so I just loved loving on babies. And so we had lots of kids in foster care. My parents adopted some of my siblings, and now they're like, my brothers and sisters, obviously. And so I've had a heart to nurture for as long as I can remember.
Isn't that funny? Because I think
Hmm.
of like grandkids or other little kids. There's some kids that are like, I am not going to babysit. Are you kidding me? What is that? Get that away from me, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
you've got other kids who all they want to do is carry around a baby, right? And
Hmm. Yep.
play with the dolls and play kitchen, right? And all this other kind of stuff, right? And then those of us who wanted to nurture that in our children, and let's say we bought them dolls and they didn't play with them, and then we bought them the kitchen and they didn't play with them, and then we bought them this and they didn't play with them, and all they wanted to do was be a secretary, right? And be at the office at a secretary. I had one of
Yep.
those.
That's
You
funny.
know?
Yeah, my girls have totally different interests. They love
Yeah.
kids too, but that's not their passion. So,
Yes. And so
yeah, they're
some of
more
us,
creative and artistic and nature loving. It's just
yeah.
yeah, different.
So how would you speak, and especially in our society today, how would you speak to young women or men who have that longing for motherhood or fatherhood? How would you speak to them today?
I would just say love whoever, whatever people, children, whoever that God puts in your path. I think, whether you're an auntie or a grandma or a mom or a friend. I even some of my close friends, I refer to myself as Auntie Mon, and I just want to like gather them up and snuggle them and just make them feel safe and um, happy and just give them a safe place. So I think that you can do that any age of people, anywhere you go. If you have the heart for that, then you're just going to be that loving and welcoming person. So
That's
do
right.
it
So
and
you're,
with whatever kids are around.
yeah, because you're being a conduit for love, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like you were created to be a spout, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you think
Yep.
of the song, I'm a little teapot, short and stout, right? If we
Mm-hmm.
think of just, you were created to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
when there potentially was voices all around you that would try to steer you in a direction that you were not created to go, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Share with
Okay.
viewers how you defended, lovingly defended what was in you. Just share with viewers a little bit about that.
Okay. I know that I wanted to be a nurse, and I talked about doing that. And so when I got married and started a family right away, and decided, okay, I'm done with schooling. I'm a mom now, and that's what I'm going to do. I got some pushback, like, "What about your dreams of being a nurse?" And I had to say, no, this is really what I believe God is calling me to do. And actually, He made me a nurse because my fourth child was born with a smooth brain and severely special needs. And so I became a nurse, even though I never did the schooling to do it. But I guess just knowing in my heart that what God was calling me to was where I was supposed to be. I just had a confidence for that. I mean, I kind of was like, it kind of sets you back and makes you feel
Mm-hmm.
discouraged. But I knew that what God was leading me to, I could trust Him for, and that He was going to use my life no matter what. And so I could just walk forward in loving being a mom and then homeschooling. I always liked the idea of teaching, and then God called me to teach my children. And so I've taught my children all along. And I love that. I love that opportunity. I've just been totally led by the Spirit in that whole process of teaching them and training them and continuing to do so because they're adults now. And then in this
Mm-hmm.
next step of, moving out of the state that we lived in and moving into like a farming lifestyle, maybe homesteading, I don't know. But um, you know, I a lot of people had doubts and or thought we should be doing something that we weren't, and I don't know, I just really have had to allow like go to that secret place by myself with the Lord, and He gives me. I was kind of going through my journals, and there's so many verses, so many passages of how God, step by step, gave me the next step to take, and um, affirmed it or confirmed it through the scripture. So I guess just one day at a time. That's my biggest mantra. I just take it one day at a time, and as the Lord leads, my desires to be obedient, my desires to be humble and wait for Him, and so He answers and He gives me the next step. So it doesn't matter what other people say. I've had a lot of things that people maybe didn't think I was doing it the right way or whatever, and it's okay. It's okay.
So I think it's not that anybody would say. I actually hold on. I want to take that back. I only know of one young woman who said to me, "I want to be blessed with a deaf child." Because
Hmm.
it was instilled within her to learn American Sign Language. And
Okay.
she was just fascinated by it. Now, she hasn't conceived a child yet, but I've never heard of anybody say that before. And so, I would like you to do two things. I would like you to, I'm going to call it, I'm not going to call it that. I would like you to share a word of encouragement for parents who have a special need child,
Hmm.
but they the JESUS is nowhere on their radar. How are you going to encourage that parent?
Hmm. I don't know how you could have a child and not, well, you just need Jesus. So that would be really hard. But honestly, a lot of people have, they find out that they're going to have a child with special needs. And from my experience, I would just say that for us, Jaron was such a precious blessing to us. It didn't matter. And we weren't prepared for anything. We didn't have all the answers, but I would still tell someone, even if they didn't have God on their radar, I would say, but God created this child. And I don't think that he chooses people and says, here's your, disabled child. I think that um, it's just a blessing in every way, even though it's hard. And God like comes alongside of you and will help you persevere and do whatever you have to do. Some people say, I don't know how you do it. It's like, there is no way to explain it without God. Jeez, you're really stumping me.
Okay, no, 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 no. This is good, and let me tell you why this is good. This is good because as you're speaking, I would like you to share because people don't know the end story. Okay, so don't
Yep.
share that.
Hmm.
Don't share that yet.
Okay.
Whoosh. I would like you to share because Monica's not the parent of one child or two child or three childs.
Yep.
Okay, so I
Hmm.
would like you to share with what are, and we're going to stick to the word characteristics. Okay,
Okay.
what are characteristics that you saw being developed in your husband, in this child, and this child, or this child? Share with us characteristics that you saw develop in your family because, and I'm purposely wording it this way, because you have a special need child
Characteristics in my husband?
or your children. You saw them develop in them because
Yeah.
they were in a family with a special need child.
Okay. So my husband growing up, he kind of had a feeling that he just had compassion for kids with special needs. He had a feeling that he would. I wouldn't say he wished he would, but he had a feeling that God would somehow put someone with special needs in his life. So he already kind of had that compassion too. Um and our kids are totally different because of having a sibling with special needs. And all of us, we've had to trust the Lord in ways that I don't know if everybody has to trust the Lord that much. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, everybody goes through difficult things, but and there's so much depth to life and but I remember my kids walking into a church Bible study and my kids were little. This is before their brother was born, and they saw someone with a walker or a cane or a wheelchair, and they kind of backed away like they were nervous. It made them uncomfortable. And now they will embrace or go up and approach, talk to, open a door. Like they're right there. They want to be right there and available, and they just have so much um, joy and compassion and appreciation for their brother, and it just makes you okay. You said not to go quite all the way there. So I have to hold back for a little bit. Um, But yeah, they just view life in a such a more rich and meaningful way. And they have compassion for other people that maybe if you didn't experience it, you wouldn't. And actually, one of my daughters is taking an American Sign Language class. She'd love to do something with American Sign Language. So I just think they're really sweet. Even the young ones, even the little ones aren't afraid of the unknown or people that are different or, you know, so they ask questions. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate, people not being afraid to ask questions and talk to you about your child because you love them and you want them to be known and understood. And so,
Yeah, that's really good because uh, fear, I believe, comes from the unknown, right?
mm-hmm.
And there's
Yeah.
actually an acronym for the word fear. It's false evidence appearing real.
Hmm. I've
False,
never heard that
yeah,
before.
false evidence appearing real. False
Huh?
evidence,
Mm-hmm.
right? False evidence. So you
Yeah.
don't know what you don't know, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I remember when I had the honor of my grandmother coming to live with us. And she lived with us for the last 9 months of her life. And, then
Okay.
my father-in-law also came to live with us, but
Mm-hmm.
with my grandmother, I remember there towards the end, thinking, the day she couldn't get out of the tub. And, she had to cover up with a towel and I had to send my husband in because I couldn't get her out of the tub, right? But
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
remember thinking, oh no, you guys will do whatever's needed. But they were in a place where they just couldn't. They just, there was only so far that they could go, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so if we think of, okay, you said you've now moved to the country. Okay, so in the country, you weren't, if you're from the city and now you're in the country,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, not just you and your husband, but everybody's coming up against things that we've never done that before, and oh,
Right.
that's kind of uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Yep.
can you share from a mom perspective, from a couple perspective, how you knew it was the best decision to put your children in an uncomfortable space to have to learn, and then share with us the results that have come from it.
Hmm. I think that we all had the desire to be in the country, and you're right. There are so many more responsibilities that they've never experienced. We were all city kids, so, but God put it in our hearts, and I think everybody kind of felt the same way. We like being out in nature more. Actually, my youngest 6-year-old says, we didn't move to the country, we moved to the nature." So I thought that was really funny. It's just his understanding of it. He's like, what's the country? I don't know. But then giving them, I mean, I think you progressively have to give more responsibilities, kind of like you were talking with your mom. Maybe it was like sprung on. If it's sprung on you, then you don't really know what to do. But, we've practiced things. When we lived in town, we had chickens, we've had ducks, we had planted a garden, we learned to can with Brian's grandma. Um, and I started making sourdough. A lot of those things that are kind of homesteady, I was doing on a progressive learning basis. And so I think that's the best way to kind of expand yourself and your kids is to practice it slowly, to, expand them and help them to learn new things, not just like, boom, here we're doing all these things. And there was a bit of that moving on to this property. Um, but and then like now we're building an addition on our house, and but all the kids have done years of doing smaller jobs with their dad, and now it's like here's a really big job. And so it's hard, like everybody's having, and we've homeschooled all these years, and so we're really lax about our mornings. And so this whole like waking up, you have to feed animals, there's all these farm chores, and we're working every day on the house. It's like it's pushing everybody. So I guess just being patient and keep on encouraging. That's a really big one. If they feel discouraged or like you're just frustrated with them all the time, because I can level up and not complain about it, and Brian can level up or, this is kind of his norm. He's not having to do a lot more, but we're asking them to do a lot. And so it is a big deal, but to be encouraging, I think that's really important, and to keep reminding them to be thankful, to look around and what is the end goal? What are we working towards? Like all of those, like how can we have encouraging conversation constantly about it, even though you don't really want to wake up and do this bright and early in the morning, and it's going to get cold and, all that. It's going to be hard. So I guess
that's really good, Monica, because I think of this for a second. For me personally, when I reared my children, I always thought it's my responsibility to teach them a work ethic, right? Because they're going to grow up, they're going to have a boss, and the boss is not going to accept, well, I kind of don't feel like doing it your way. I would like to do it this way instead. The boss is going to say, oh, special little one over there, you can go find a job somewhere else, right?
Yeah. You're done.
So if we think of just the different things in our past or our upbringing that actually are used to aid us in our future, like you said, Brian, always had a heart for, somebody who had a need, right? Grew up with that desire, right?
Yeah.
I'll never forget the day my mom sent me back in the bathroom for the fourth time because I lackadaisically cleaned that bathroom, right?
Yeah.
She didn't know at that moment that X amount of years later, it would have been 30 years later, no, probably 20, she did not know that 28 years later, I was going to own a house cleaning service for the next 19 and a half years.
Yeah.
She didn't know that. But she knew to teach us a work ethic. I still remember vacuuming that carpet in that house, right? Right? And so we always don't know. But I love what you say with encouragement, right? And so all of your children are, or even people you work, colleagues that you work with, there are people that do stuff at one pace and there's people that do stuff at another pace, right? But the same result has to be the end result. So how would you encourage parents to stick to a project at hand requiring the same outcome?
I think really the main thing is just staying positive and encouraging. All of our kids do work very differently. They all have very different strengths and weaknesses. And so it's hard to not say, like when your mom sent you back to the bathroom to do a better job, like how do you not discourage them and make them feel like failures or never good enough? Like that's kind of something I've never want to do, like make my kids feel like they can't ever do it well enough. So I feel like I said, that just being really encouraging and working with them, that's a big one too. Like, I hope that by my work ethic, I will work myself to the ground and keep on working. And my kids know that. And Brian too, like we will work and work and work. And so hopefully that has an influence on their work ethic as well, what they're learning, because they see that we don't give up, that we're not being lazy, that we're doing our best. And also finding those, some of our kids like physically can't do what another one can. And it's not necessarily the oldest and the strongest and the boy. Like there's some things that, the youngest, tiniest one can do a lot better. And so finding those things, those strengths, and because we are all working, especially in this situation when we're building our own house, but even when they're helping their dad do another job for someone else, they're not all going to do the same thing to get to the outcome. But what are you good at? What are you not so good at? What can we ask you to do? And what, so there's a little bit of juggling, and there's some things like, okay, that's not working, or there's some kids getting frustrated, and I don't, even the little kids, the little boys are playing Legos a lot. It's a good thing. They love their Legos. Brian just said it today, because they're playing them for hours while all the big kids, the teenagers and mom and dad are like feverishly working. We're actually fighting because we have to get as much built before the snow comes. We're in North Idaho. And so it's like, we have a deadline. We don't know when it is exactly. Only God knows. We're praying that it's, when we can get to a certain point. But so we have to be up till dark working. And so everybody, but we all have the same goal. So reminding each other, and then having downtime, what are we going to do? That's fun. Let's go get an ice cream cone at the grocery store. You guys did a really good job. Or if they're not, like, we want to go buy you lunch, but we really have to get this stuff done, So having all of that, I don't know, positive reinforcement, I think is really helpful.
That's really, and I just interviewed somebody who actually is the founder of not transitional youth, Breaking Cycles. Okay. And then she is the executive director of a foundation called Transitional Youth. Okay. She's executive director on both. But one thing she said that was so powerful, and you've reiterated it again and again and again, is stuff has to be done through love. How can I love? How can I love? And so when you look at different children, how can I love this child? Okay. How can I love? Yep. And so I would like to now move the direction that sometimes, no matter how much we love, we don't get the outcome that we wanted. And I would like you to share some things in your life. And how do you deal with it when that happens? No matter how much we love, sometimes we don't get the outcome we want.
Well, I have 6 kids, and our fourth, we had 3 kids born within 3 years. So they were toddlers together. It was crazy life for the beginning of their lives. And now they're all teenagers and getting their license and jobs. And then their baby brother, Jaron, was born when they were all still pretty little, like 7, 6, and 5. They were little still. And he was born with a smooth brain. And the doctors don't know why. There wasn't any, it's not there's nothing in our genetic history, but he was born, so he was severely disabled. He had seizures, and he was kind of like, they said he would be like a 3 to 5 month old cognitive development. And he was. So when I had a child later, he was about, when he passed 3 to 5 months old, I was like, oh yeah, he's like bypassing all of the things that Jaron wasn't able to do. So he had a feeding tube and seizures, and then we went through a whole process of like learning how to take care of him, figuring out what things we needed to help him, and then I found out I was pregnant, and I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? How am I going to take care of a new baby and have Jaron? And then the other 3, it felt really overwhelming, but the Lord really put it on my heart that this new child was going to be joy. It was just, he highlighted joy. And so I totally had peace about it, and God provided and helped me through every step of the process. And that's why I say there's nothing I could do without the Lord. But one of the first things I did when Jaron was born, and we knew that life was going to be hard with him, the doctors told us he would not live a year. And so we had that first year. I had some assurances from the Lord that he would live a year. And so I just didn't worry about losing him in that year, but there was still a lot of things to worry about. But I went on a journey. I read a book, The 1,000 Gifts by Ann Voskamp, and started a thankful journal. And I think that shifted everything in my life. It really changed. My mindset had to be focused on being grateful, being thankful, and finding all the things to be grateful about. And so I think that saved our life, saved my marriage, saved my children's outlook on everything. And so we just took every day as a gift, and we're thankful for everything. And we talked about it. One day we'll lose our best buddy, but God is still good, and he loves us. And but we're just going to be thankful for everything that we get to do with him. So we took him on hikes and took him on vacations. We went to Hawaii. We went on a hike one time and we had to carry his wheelchair up over rocks and roots, and it was miles down and back up. It was incredible. So like we didn't let it stop us. And we just loved him with reckless abandon, and he was just precious. He couldn't do anything wrong. He couldn't argue. He was just sweet and precious. And then he started having seizures. He was 11 years old, and he started having more and more seizures. And we took him to the hospital. And when we got there, his lungs were fine. And as you know, the next day they did another X-ray, and there's like it's just not. It just started clouding up, and within 3 days, he was on his way to heaven. And so here we are. We had 11 precious years instead of one. And, you know, it totally rocked our world when we got his diagnosis and flipped it in again when he passed away. And so love wasn't enough to save him, but it was enough to give him a beautiful life and to just be nothing but thankful for who he was, how he shaped our lives, how God showed himself to us through his life, made us appreciate things that we would not have necessarily appreciated. And so love was enough, but we have to wait to see the fulfillment of who he is one day. The name, I prayed so much for his name, and what I ended up with was Jaron, and it means he will sing. And we always said, like, he probably has this beautiful voice because he never could speak. He could kind of coo and make sounds a little bit, but very rarely. But I'm just imagining this, you know, big, strong, standing, because he never stood, and just like soft, you know, highlighted hair and bright green eyes, and then just, you know, singing to me. And I'll be like, I'm going to know that voice, even though I don't know what it sounds like right now. Like, that's so precious. As much as I want to see Jesus's face, I want to hear Jaron's voice. So I guess I would say love is enough. It is. Life is precious, and none of us have anything guaranteed. So,
you know,
yeah.
instantly when you start to share that part, I hear in my mind the song, Lord, I'm amazed by you. Lord, I'm amazed by you. Lord, I'm amazed by you in how you love me. And in that song, it goes on to say, he dances over me when I am unaware. And I just think of that, how your little Jaron, how his life, without speaking, without walking, right? Without being a doer, right? The family received without him doing. And it is that, is that not a picture of the great I am towards us?
Yeah, so many years I've struggled with not feeling like I'm enough, you know, not good enough, not doing whatever. And so I remember one day specifically thinking about, I think I shared a post about it on Facebook or something, how Jaron will never say my name. He'll never win any awards. He'll never would never do any great physical feats, but he is perfect and precious, and I'm so proud of him, and I love him so much. And it's a reflection of Jesus, God's love for us as our Father. We don't have to do anything. He loves us. We're his precious children. And so that just, even, you know, thinking about it right now, it just gives me so much, like, oh, I can just let go of all of the things that I feel like I have to do or prove or be approved of from anyone else. He loves me, even if I could do nothing.
That's right. You know, when my children were growing up, I told them, I've only done two perfect things in life. One was when I was 16, 1984, in Tacoma, Washington. I said yes to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, I told my children, talk to the Lord in the walls of your mind,
Hmm.
because I wanted them to know his voice.
Hmm.
So I would like you to share with viewers, what is it like to hear the voice of God talking to you?
Hmm.
What is your earliest memory? Go back. What is your earliest memory?
Probably when I was like 15 or 16 and sitting at the beach and watching, like I was just overcome with the power of the waves and the ocean. And that was a really powerful thing. Always in nature. I think of another walk. I was hiking with some women. Actually, I was pregnant with Jaron, so it was many years later. And there's just this rippling brook, and I just remember saying, "Hi, Jesus." Like it just felt like he was kind of like hugging me. Or when I love a full moon, like a big, bright full moon. I'm just like, just in awe of God's awesomeness. And but but speaking to me personally, like I feel him in that way, and speaking to me personally through the word when there's one time I asked God, I really was struggling, I think parenting and with homeschooling questions, and I was like, Lord, I need you to speak to me. And I went to a coffee shop, and you go into it kind of doubting, like, is he really gonna give me the answers I need? And he totally did. And I was like, oh my goodness, of course you did. Or another time, Brian said I was overstressed with kids, and I was nursing my sixth baby. So, 5 years ago. And no, I'm sorry, my 9-year old. So it was my fifth baby. Anyways, and I wrote down a ridiculous list of things that I wanted God to meet me there and do. And I got to the end of just a weekend, and I was like, you did everything. And then so many, like I was saying about my journal, like when he when I take the time to stop and be quiet and listen to his voice, I don't ever hear words. I just feel it in my heart. I'm thinking, and then it's like a peace comes over me, and he gives me words from the word that are just like so perfectly fit into what I needed to hear. And so through all those things, that was lots of examples.
No, no, no. That is brilliant, because now you just got set up. Okay. So, teacher Monica, you have you have the world of hearts in front of you, and you have the world of little ears in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to take this moment to share Jesus with the world?
You mean because I'm speaking on this video? Is that what you're referring to?
No,
Okay.
literally the
Right.
world. This is your
Whoever.
moment. The world is in front of
Mm-hmm.
you, and you are
Mm-hmm.
going to teach the ears and the hearts of the world about Jesus.
God is so amazing and precious, and I just can't even believe how much he loves us. And he just wants us to follow him. He wants us to hear his voice, listen to him, live an abundant, joy-filled life. He wants us to know our purpose and why we were created. He wants us to know his love. And so that, I mean, I want to seek him and know him, and I want to be a light. I want my family to be a light that even if we don't even, I don't know, I just can't help but share about God's love and who he is and how he has been so close to me. And if you could go through the valley of the shadow of death, and he will never leave you. And you may think, I couldn't ever do that. I couldn't, I can't imagine going through something so difficult. But when you do, and if you're going through anything hard, the Lord will be right there with him. You just have to turn towards him. As long as you're not running away from him and turning your back on him and ignoring him, if you turn towards him, you will feel his love and his kindness and his peace, and he will carry you. He will pick you up and hold you and give you the comfort that you need no matter what you go through in your life. God's love is enough. And so wait for him patiently, listen for his voice, read his word, spend time talking to him, and he's everything you need.
So talk about in stadiums around the globe. There seems to be this little poster that pops up that says John 3:16. What does that mean?
The John 3:16.
Yeah.
That God loved us so much, and he knew that we were broken and sinful and separated from him. And he knew that the only way to bring us into that holy of holy places and make us right with him was to lay down the life of his own son. And actually, there was a moment in the hospital when I had to acknowledge that I was surrendering my son. And I felt in a small way what it feels like to say, okay, Lord, you can have him. He's yours. He was always yours. Thank you so much for him. But I have to lay him down and trust that you have a better plan. And that's what God had to do. He had to lay down his own son because he was the only perfect one. He was the only spotless lamb. There was no other sacrifice that could do it. Every lamb that had to be slain in the whole Old Testament was never enough. But Jesus' blood was enough. And so now he wants to bridge that gap of brokenness and separateness from us. He wants to live in us. Christ in us, the greatest mystery. And he could only do that through laying down his own son. And so now we can be right with him. Not perfect. He doesn't ask for perfection. He wants us to walk a road to holiness in righteousness through his son. Because of his son, we can be like him and just be blessed in our life and have him close to us. It's not even about a ticket to heaven, but about a life spent surrendering to the Lord and to his goodness. And yeah, I don't know. How do I tie that up with a bow?
No, so so now there's all these kids' hearts that are in the form of adults. Okay? All of these childlike hearts that are in the form of adults who have now listened to what you said, and they're like, I want to know that. I want to know what she speaks of. How do they do that, Monica?
Just humble yourself before the Lord. Just acknowledge that you have hurt God and others. You have sin in your life, whatever that looks like: pride, jealousy, anger, hatred, unforgiveness. There's so many things. It's not just, murder. There's just simple things in our life that we are guilty of. And so if you just turn to God and tell him, I realize that I am a sinner and I need to be saved. I need my life to be in alignment with yours, and I want to follow you. I don't necessarily know what that looks like. I'm scared or I don't understand, but God, I'm willing to humble myself and ask for your help and trust that you are the only one that can save my life. And I give my life to you. I lay it down. I surrender everything that I thought I was supposed to do or be, all of the things that I failed at, and just ask for your forgiveness. I receive your forgiveness. I receive your love. And I want to know who you are. So continuing on that journey of who is God, discover who he is, and he will show himself to you, I promise. That's a guarantee.
That's so perfectly put. Even within this last week, there was a situation, or hold on, I don't want to word it that way. Even in this last week, it was like in my mind, not out loud, but in my mind, I said yes to Jesus in 1984. And as I look at it, the, the creator of the universe has always known me, but I was not consciously aware of him until 1984 when I
Okay.
said, Jesus, come into my heart and be my Lord. Okay. But within this last week, there was a day. I don't have a cold, people. By the way, I'm just a wreck of tears today because what I'm hearing is so beautiful. Okay, there's no sickness over here, but uh, but it was brought to my attention that as human beings, we were never created to carry pain. And I was like, oh, Lord, break that down some more.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the Bible, it says that if anybody would like to follow me, he must pick up his cross daily and follow me. Okay? So then the Lord showed me something different. So here is the cross of Calvary. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the cross of Calvary. Jesus paid the price for every sorrow we would ever endure, every hardship we would ever go through, every disappointment that would ever incur in our life. He already paid the price. Well, in the Bible, okay, it says that his yoke is easy and his burdens are light. So when he showed me this inner pain that I had carried for so long, when he showed me that I was my body, my physical human body, my emotional being, my brain itself, was never created to carry pain. He said, that's because your pain was already paid for on the cross. So if you're carrying pain, you're outside of your jurisdiction, basically, as a human being. And we all know that pain, right, inner turmoil, has an effect on us biologically, right? So
Absolutely.
can you share with viewers, because just because you made it seem like you laid him down, and then we had to just pick up and move on, share with them that whole painful grieving process of losing a child. And how did you do that with God?
It was a lot of days of, we ended up going on a road trip, which we were planning beforehand. It happened and then we left on a road trip. And I did that. And I remember sitting in the truck, like with the, world zooming by, and just a lot of deep groans, like you're like out loud. I would be like, take a deep breath. And just it, like, that's what grief felt like to me. It was the deepest part of me just groaned, and I just had to breathe and take one breath at a time. And what was that like? It was heavy and it was quiet, but then it was a lot of talking too. I feel like I helped my family walk through grief and continue to by talking and sharing. I'm not afraid to share my story. Anyone can ask me about Jaron, and I will happily talk about him, and any of us will. I think that's a really important thing. I remember getting ready for his funeral, and I was just in the shower, and I had this like wave over me of God as my king and being his princess, and just being totally like scooped up and held, like just I don't know. I don't know how you go through it. You just do it one day at a time. Um, but you're seeking him. If I had turned into myself and focused on how much pain I was feeling, I would, it's like you would self-destruct. But if you're looking up, looking out, asking God for his help, asking him for comfort, I know people were praying for me, and the Spirit was doing things that I can't even imagine. I don't know really how else to explain it.
That's beautiful.
But just breathing through.
Yeah. And you know, and it wasn't, you know, it wasn't one way. It wasn't just
Mm-hmm.
one way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, there's a verse in the Bible that says we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Years
Mm-hmm.
back, there's a song that came out, I Can Only Imagine, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in the Bible, it talks about streets of gold, right? But I would like to place on this moment in human time that I believe, my personal opinion, is
Mm-hmm.
that heaven can see God at work in mankind. So in heaven, you don't see any pain, you don't see the sorrows, but you see heaven at work in mankind. And I would like to say that in this video, in this interview, that Jaron is saying, that's my mom.
Oh,
And
that's
that
so sweet.
woman was the best mom ever.
Mm. Thank you.
And so, how would you share with parents, okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, how do they give themselves grace?
Mm. Be honest. If there are things that you have done wrong, to be honest about it, tell the truth, and be willing to humble yourself, and then keep asking the Lord for his word for you and his encouragement. um, yeah, I guess we need to see ourselves how God sees us, so that we're not upholding ourselves to man's expectations, because that's where we feel like we're not enough, right? That's why we feel like we can never measure up, because other people are doing something so much greater or whatever, but God's expectation, kind of back to what can Jaron do to prove he's a good man or a good son, or nothing. He couldn't do anything. And so that's where we can have grace, is we are just a child of God. And if we are humbly coming before him, if we are acknowledging when we're hurting others and asking for forgiveness and making that right, um, then we're right with God and right with man. And I don't know, because if we are making mistakes, then we can acknowledge them. And that's something we can do that with our kids when they're 2, and we can do that with them when they're 32. If there's things that we need to confess or take responsibility for, then we can do that. But then, and then you have to just receive grace once you have that right standing with the Lord and with others.
So, what would you say to just this morning? I actually got a phone call from a parent
Mm-hmm.
whom adult children,
Mm-hmm.
found it their responsibility to have an ongoing list of all the ways the parent had done things incorrectly. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What would you say to that parent to help them
Mm-hmm.
deal with life in
Mm-hmm.
this imperfect world?
I think that even adult kids just want to be heard and understood. And so instead of like thinking, oh, I've just done everything wrong and I'm just a horrible person, and then like heaping all of that on yourself, I think just get real with them. I would say that today with a 19-year-old, and I would say that, that's what everybody wants. Like, your kids want to come to you and have something that has hurt them, listen, like be open to it, be humble and hear from them. And then if there is something that you need to say, you know what, I didn't realize that that was hurting you, or you know, whatever it was, you can still acknowledge it. And I think that's what they need to know, that their feelings are acknowledged and understood and to some degree forgiven. So
That's
I think
really
that's a good, I think communication is so important. I think that so many family problems happen because people are too afraid to communicate. They're going to hurt each other's feelings or something's going to break. But I think that the more you can communicate and talk about those things and say, I don't really understand why that was the way you understood it that way, but I want to understand. And, you know, just having that place, that just place of humility, I think is really important.
That's
If you really
good.
want to restore a relationship, like
Yeah,
you have
that's
to be
good.
humble.
That's really good advice. You know, because I was thinking of, you know, I remember getting to a certain point and realizing, oh my gosh, I was sleep deprived for years and didn't realize it. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somehow I had this ideal that a mom could work full time outside of the house. She could do the laundry for 5 kids. She could cook for the 5 kids, and always have a good demeanor all the time, no matter what. And then somehow in there you spent hours in the Word of God, right? And then somehow you slept, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Barely.
I just I literally was sleep deprived. I was sleep deprived for decades without even realizing it. And then I remember telling my kids, "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry." Right?
Mm-hmm.
But an image comes to me in this scene. I use old school Kleenex. Okay, so I just happen to have one of these old school Kleenex right here, and this could be a book. Okay,
Okay.
we all take from the same roll.
Mm-hmm.
We all take from the same roll,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we all take from the same roll. We all take from the same roll. We share the same roll, right? And but not everybody's excrement, is that the right word, is the same. Okay?
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
so what is rubbish to some is not rubbish to others, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's important that, you know, you could all grow up in the same household, and then I know in my siblings, I grew up in a family of 6 kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all have a different version of what kind of household we grew up in. All of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All of it, it's different. And yet, as a result, my mom raised 6 very strong human beings.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
so just I would like you to um, speak a word of encouragement, purposefully praying over parents who look back and think, oh my gosh, and the best way they can redeem that time.
Mm-hmm. I think the best thing you do is not make excuses, not say I didn't do that or I didn't, but to just say, to just listen. I think that's so important. What is it, without trying to defend, because being on the defense is going to just make the other person say, okay, there's not going to be any mending of this. It's not going to be mended. It can't be made right if you're saying I didn't do that, you know? So I think just humility, you have to have humility and be willing to listen and say, I'm really sorry. I did not realize that that was doing that, or I do realize it now. And I think just being honest and humble, and then asking for forgiveness. I hope you can't like assume they're going to forgive you because you say sorry, but you can say, I'm really sorry for how this affected you, and be as specific as possible, like how you realize that they were affected, because that requires the listening and understanding for them, and then acknowledging that, and saying that I'm really sorry, and I hope, not assuming, but I hope you will be able to forgive me. And then it's on the other person to forgive you and to move on and to feel healing. But they have the opportunity to heal if the person that has hurt them in whatever capacity is saying, I'm sorry, I see that that hurt you, and I'm really sorry that that happened. And then, repentance is completely turning from it, not continually doing
Yeah,
that
yeah.
same hurting. And I mean, like you're asking for someone who's an adult now to
Yes,
adult
yes,
children, right?
yes, yes.
So it's probably not still happening,
Yeah.
but we have, I mean, so many people have like wounds from their childhood that you can't change, you can't take it away. And
Uh-huh.
but you're not going to continue in that. But if you don't ever acknowledge it, then they feel like they're always still that wounded child.
Uh-huh.
So I think that making it right is a really important process if you want to continue a relationship.
That's
So
really good advice. Oh my God. And now to all of our viewers today, I did not know that we were going to play Psychology 101 here. And on healing, like if we were to assign this episode to be one big word across it, healing is the ultimate end result. Healing,
great.
healing.
I love it.
And you'll have to look this up, but Michelle Toombs, Tumes, did a song called Healing Waters. Whoosh, get your Kleenex. All the viewers, get
Okay.
your Kleenex, right? Healing Waters, the simplest song ever. Ah, the melody, everything. It's like she ushers you in to want healing. And it is just beautiful. So thank you, thank you, Monica, for coming on today. Thank you for choosing to allow me to pry inside
Mm-hmm.
of your mind so that others could glean from you being a carrier of wisdom. I
Thank you.
really thank you. And to all of our viewers, we want to thank you for coming on this episode of Sagionic 1027. And until our next episode, may the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon thee. Blessings. Bye.